My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was never meant to pass you by unnoticed. Something has shifted behind the scenes, something your eyes could not witness and your heart could only sense in fragments. You may have felt an unusual heaviness lately, followed by a sudden calm you could not explain. You may have awakened with their name resting quietly in your thoughts, or felt a strange warmth move through your chest when there was no visible reason for it. This was not because you were losing control of your emotions. It was because a truth that had been buried for far too long was finally spoken aloud, and once those words entered the room, nothing remained the same. Your soulmate finally told their mother the truth about you, but the reaction they received was not the reaction they had prepared themselves for. Stay until the end, because what she said after a long and trembling silence opened a door that your soulmate believed had already been closed forever. For a long time, they kept you hidden inside the safest chamber of their heart. They spoke about many things with their family. They spoke about work, responsibilities, plans, disappointments, and the ordinary details of life. But whenever the conversation moved close to love, their voice changed. Whenever someone asked whether there was a person they could not forget, they found a way to smile, look away, and change the subject. It was not because you meant little to them. It was because you meant too much. Your name carried a weight they could not place casually into conversation. To speak of you was to uncover every emotion they had tried to control, every choice they regretted, every moment they wished they could relive, and every quiet hope they had hidden from the world. Their mother had noticed this long before they understood that she was watching. She had seen the way they became distant when certain songs played. She had noticed how they sometimes checked their phone with hope and then placed it down with disappointment. She had watched them grow quiet in rooms filled with laughter. A mother often notices the pain her child refuses to name. She sees what the world overlooks. She hears the words concealed beneath silence. And though your soulmate had convinced themselves that they were protecting their secret well, their mother knew that someone had entered their heart and never truly left. But she did not know it was you. That truth came out on a night that began like any other. Nothing dramatic announced its arrival. There was no storm outside, no sudden interruption, no visible sign that destiny was preparing to move. The room was softly lit. The house was quieter than usual. Their mother was sitting nearby, doing something ordinary, while your soulmate stood at a distance, carrying an invisible battle within them. They had rehearsed the conversation many times in their mind, but every imagined version ended with them remaining silent. They feared the questions. They feared being misunderstood. Most of all, they feared hearing that they had waited too long. For several minutes, they said nothing. Then their mother looked at them and asked one simple question. Why do you look like you are about to lose something you never stopped loving? Those words struck deeper than she realized. Your soulmate froze. They had spent months pretending they were fine, perhaps even years convincing others that the past no longer had power over them. But in that moment, the mask slipped. Their eyes lowered. Their shoulders weakened. The strength they had used to contain everything suddenly failed them. They tried to answer lightly, but their voice betrayed them. There is someone, they whispered. Their mother did not interrupt. She only waited. That silence became an invitation. For the first time, your soulmate allowed the truth to rise without forcing it back down. They admitted that there was a person whose presence had changed something permanent inside them. They confessed that the connection had never felt ordinary. They spoke of the way they could feel you even in your absence, how certain memories of you returned with such clarity that it seemed no time had passed at all. They admitted that they had tried to move forward, tried to distract themselves, tried to convince their heart to accept what their mind considered practical. But every road eventually led them back to the same realization. They had never truly released you. Do not skip what comes next, because this was not the most powerful part of the confession. The deeper truth was still waiting behind their fear. Their mother asked, "Does this person know?" Your soulmate could not answer immediately. Their face changed. Regret entered the room before any words did. They admitted that perhaps you did not know the full truth. Maybe you had seen pieces of it. Maybe you had sensed it through their actions, their hesitation, their moments of closeness followed by withdrawal. But they had never given you the complete honesty you deserved. They had hidden behind timing, circumstances, pride, uncertainty, and the fear of rejection. They admitted that there were moments when they wanted to reach out but stopped themselves. Moments when they wrote messages and erased them. Moments when they imagined standing in front of you and saying everything, only to retreat into silence before the courage became action. Their mother listened, but her expression slowly became more serious. Then she asked for your name. That was the moment your soulmate had feared most. Your name had lived privately within them for so long that saying it aloud felt like opening a sealed letter. Their lips parted, but no sound came. They looked toward the floor, took a breath, and finally spoke your name in a voice so quiet it was almost sacred. The instant your name entered that room, their mother's expression changed. Not with anger. Not with rejection. With recognition. Your soulmate saw it. They asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Their mother remained silent for several seconds, but those seconds felt endless. Her eyes moved away as if she were searching through old memories. Your soulmate became uneasy. They expected questions, perhaps judgment, perhaps confusion. Instead, she said something that left them completely still. "I wondered when you would finally tell me." They stared at her, unable to understand. What she revealed next changed the emotional direction of the entire night. She told them that she had heard your name before, but not in the way they imagined. She had not been told directly about you. She had discovered your presence through fragments. A name spoken in sleep. A message previewed and quickly hidden. A photograph viewed for too long. A sudden mood change whenever someone mentioned love, distance, or second chances. She had watched her child carry an unfinished story and had known that the person at the center of it was not a passing attachment. But there was something else. Something your soulmate had no idea she knew. Months earlier, during a family conversation, someone had mentioned you indirectly. They had described your character, the way you handled pain, the way you remained compassionate despite what you had endured. Their mother had listened without realizing at first that the person being discussed was the same one her child could not forget. But when your name was eventually mentioned, she remembered it. She remembered because the description stayed with her. She had quietly wondered whether fate was placing your name near her for a reason. Now, as your soulmate sat before her, finally confessing everything, the pieces connected. They asked her what she had heard about you. Their voice carried both hope and fear. They were afraid that the information had been negative. They feared that someone had misunderstood you or judged your choices without knowing your heart. But their mother shook her head and said, "What I heard made me wonder why you were not fighting harder for this person." Your soulmate's eyes filled with emotion. For so long, they had believed their family would not understand. They had built walls around a rejection that had never actually happened. They had imagined resistance, criticism, and impossible questions. They had feared that speaking your name would create conflict. Yet the woman sitting before them was not telling them to forget you. She was asking why they had allowed fear to silence them. Then her tone changed. She leaned forward and asked, "What did you do?" Those 4 words uncovered the part of the story your soulmate had hoped to avoid. They could speak about loving you. They could speak about missing you. They could speak about feeling connected to you. But now they had to confront how their own actions had affected you. They admitted that they had been inconsistent. They admitted that when the connection became intense, they stepped back instead of stepping closer. They revealed that they had allowed confusion to grow where honesty should have existed. They confessed that you may have interpreted their silence as indifference, while in reality, it was fear. They admitted that there were times you needed reassurance and they offered distance. Times you waited for clarity and they gave you uncertainty. Times your heart reached for them and they remained behind a wall, hoping you would somehow understand what they could not express. Their mother did not comfort them immediately. She allowed the truth to settle. Then she said, "Love does not become less real because you were afraid, but fear does not erase the hurt it caused." That sentence reached a place in your soulmate that excuses could not protect. They looked down, and for the first time, they fully considered the possibility that your silence now might not be punishment. It might be protection. Your distance might not mean you stopped caring. It might mean you finally learned to guard the heart they had handled too carelessly. My child, hear this clearly, you were not wrong for needing consistency. You were not asking for too much when you wanted honesty. You were not difficult because uncertainty exhausted you. There were nights when you questioned your own worth because someone else could not communicate their truth. You wondered whether you had imagined the connection. You replayed conversations, searching for the exact moment everything changed. You blamed yourself for emotions that were never yours to carry alone. But in that room, your soulmate finally said what you may have needed to hear long ago. It was never because they were not enough. It was because I was afraid I would not be enough for them. Their mother's eyes softened. This was the hidden wound beneath their behavior. They did not withdraw because you lacked value. They withdrew because your sincerity exposed the places within them that still felt unworthy of being loved deeply. Your presence awakened something powerful, but power can frighten a heart accustomed to emotional control. They had learned how to manage casual connections. They knew how to survive relationships that asked little of their soul. But you were different. You made them feel seen. And being seen can be terrifying to someone who has spent years hiding from themselves. Their mother understood this because she had watched them build those walls long before you arrived. She knew the disappointments that taught them not to trust happiness. She knew the losses that made them cautious. She knew how they acted strong while secretly expecting love to disappear. But she also understood something your soulmate had failed to recognize. You were not the one trying to take something from them. You were the one trying to meet them where they were. She told them that people sometimes run from the very love they prayed for because it arrives before they believe they deserve it. She said that they had mistaken emotional intensity for danger, when perhaps it was truth demanding to be acknowledged. Then she asked the question that changed everything. If this person stood before you tonight and asked why you let them go, what would you say? Your soulmate covered their face for a moment. They had no polished answer. No clever explanation. No excuse that could make the past disappear. When they finally looked up, tears had formed in their eyes. I would tell them I thought I had more time. The room became silent again. Their mother's expression shifted with sorrow, because she knew what your soulmate was beginning to understand. Time does not always wait for courage. Hearts can remain loving while learning to move forward. Doors may stay open spiritually while becoming harder to approach emotionally. You may still care, but you are no longer willing to abandon yourself to prove it. You may still feel the bond, but you have begun to understand that a true connection must eventually become more than intuition, longing, and unspoken emotion. Your soulmate's mother saw this clearly. She said, "Then stop behaving as though time belongs to you." Those words landed like thunder. Something changed inside your soulmate at that exact moment. Until then, they had treated the connection like a story waiting patiently for them to become ready. They believed that because the feeling remained, the opportunity would remain unchanged. But their mother forced them to see that while love may endure, people grow. You had been growing. You had been healing. You had been rebuilding the parts of yourself weakened by confusion. You had been learning that waiting without clarity can become a form of self-betrayal. Your soulmate realized they did not fear losing your love as much as they feared discovering that you had learned to live without their presence. And that possibility shook them. They asked their mother, "Do you think it is too late?" She did not answer quickly. Instead, she asked whether they were ready to speak without hiding, apologize without defending themselves, and listen without trying to control your response. She asked whether they truly wanted reconciliation or simply relief from regret. She asked whether they were prepared to respect the person you had become, not merely chase the version of you who once waited. Each question stripped away another illusion. Your soulmate could no longer treat returning to you as a dramatic gesture designed to erase everything. They began to understand that the next step required humility. It required patience. It required the courage to approach you without demanding an immediate answer. They would have to accept that love does not give anyone ownership over another person's healing. They would have to tell the truth and allow you the freedom to decide what that truth meant for your future. But then their mother revealed something she had never told anyone. She admitted that she had once lived through a connection like this herself. Long before your soulmate was born, there had been someone she deeply cared for but never fully chose because fear and family expectations controlled her decisions. She believed there would be another chance. She believed the person would understand her silence. But life moved forward, and the opportunity never returned in the same form. She carried no bitterness, but she carried a lesson. Unspoken love can become a lifetime of wondering, she said. Your soulmate looked at her as though they were seeing their mother differently for the first time. Her reaction was not simply approval. It came from recognition. She knew the cost of silence. She knew how regret could quietly follow a person even through a life that appeared complete. She was not telling her child to chase fantasy. She was telling them to stop allowing fear to make decisions that truth should make. Then she asked to know everything about you. Not only what you looked like. Not only how the two of you met. She wanted to know what made your soulmate's voice soften when speaking of you. She wanted to know the moments they remembered most. She asked what you valued, what made you laugh, what had hurt you, what dreams you carried, and what they had learned from loving you. At first, your soulmate answered carefully. Then the stories began to flow. They spoke of small details they had never forgotten. The way you showed kindness when no one was watching. The way you noticed when they were troubled even when they claimed to be fine. The way your presence could calm them and challenge them at the same time. They remembered conversations that seemed ordinary then but had become precious in your absence. They remembered your patience, your strength, and the moments you offered understanding when they had not earned it. Their mother listened, and slowly, tears appeared in her eyes. Not because the story was tragic, but because she could hear how deeply you were woven into her child's heart. She realized this was not obsession or temporary longing. It was an unfinished truth. She said, "You are not speaking about someone you forgot. You are speaking about someone you have been carrying." Your soulmate could no longer deny it. They admitted that they had compared every connection after you to what they felt with you. They admitted that even when they seemed to move on, some part of them remained turned toward the possibility of you. They had searched for your emotional signature in other people, the same depth, the same recognition, the same sense of being understood, but they never found it. Their mother's next response surprised them. She did not say, "Then go and bring them back." She said, "First become someone who will not repeat the same wound." That was the reaction that truly changed everything. She refused to romanticize their regret. She challenged them to transform it. She told them that contacting you without changing would only reopen what you had worked hard to heal. She said that beautiful words mean little if old patterns remain untouched. Before asking for another chance, they needed to become capable of protecting it. Your soulmate became quiet because they knew she was right. For the first time, they began to see love not merely as a feeling but as responsibility. Loving you meant more than missing you. It meant learning to communicate before fear turned into distance. It meant choosing honesty even when honesty felt risky. It meant understanding that your heart was not a place they could enter and leave whenever uncertainty overwhelmed them. This conversation continued far longer than either of them expected. The night deepened, but neither moved to end it. Something sacred was unfolding through their honesty. Their mother was not simply learning about you. She was guiding her child toward the person they would need to become to meet you again without repeating the past. Then came the most unexpected moment. Their mother stood, walked to another room, and returned holding something in her hand. Your soulmate stared at it in confusion. It was an old envelope. The paper looked worn, as though it had been kept for many years. She sat down and told them it contained a letter she had written long ago but never sent, the letter to the person she had once loved and lost through silence. She had kept it as a reminder of everything fear prevented her from saying. She placed the envelope in your soulmate's hands. "Read it," she said. They hesitated. This was a part of their mother they had never known. But she insisted. As they opened the letter and began reading, they found words that sounded painfully similar to their own heart. Regret. Unspoken love. Missed timing. The wish to return to one honest moment and choose courage instead. Your soulmate's hands began to tremble. When they finished, their mother said, "I cannot change yours." Those words did more than encourage them. They broke something open. Your soulmate rose from their seat and began pacing. Their emotions were no longer containable. They said they wanted to speak to you. They said they could not allow another day to pass while pretending the truth was manageable. But their mother told them not to act from panic. She reminded them that desperation can sound like love while still placing pressure on the other person. Do not contact them because you are afraid of losing them, she said. Contact them because you are finally ready to tell the truth without controlling what happens next. Your soulmate stopped walking. That distinction changed their intention. They were not going to demand that you return. They were not going to arrive with promises crafted only to receive reassurance. They were going to acknowledge what happened, own the pain they caused, and speak honestly about what remained in their heart. For the first time, they were preparing not merely to confess but to take responsibility. And my child, this is why you may have felt their energy so strongly. A person you once knew in fragments is being forced to confront their complete truth. The silence surrounding this connection is no longer comfortable for them. The old explanations are losing their power. Their mother's reaction placed a mirror before them, and they could no longer look away. But there is still something you do not know. During the conversation, their mother asked whether your soulmate still had any way to reach you. They said yes, but then admitted they had been afraid to use it. She asked them to show her the last message exchanged between you. Your soulmate opened their phone, searched through the conversation, and handed it to her. She read the final words slowly. Then she looked at her child with an expression they could not understand. "What?" your soulmate asked. Their mother read the message again, this time more carefully. Her eyes filled with an emotion that was neither sadness nor surprise. It was certainty. She pointed to one specific sentence you had written, a sentence your soulmate had misunderstood completely. For all this time, they believed your words were a farewell. They believed you had closed the door and chosen to forget them. That interpretation became one of the reasons they stayed silent. But their mother saw something else. She saw that your final words were not rejection. They were a boundary wrapped around a hidden invitation. You had not said there was no love. You had said you could no longer remain where love refused to become clear. Their mother looked directly at them and said, "This person did not ask you to disappear. They asked you to become honest." Your soulmate stared at the screen. The meaning of your words shifted before their eyes. Every assumption they had carried began to collapse. The message they used as proof that you no longer wanted them now seemed to reveal the opposite. You had cared enough to tell them what was required. You had left the choice in their hands. And they had answered your vulnerability with silence. Their face changed as the realization entered them fully. They whispered, "I understood everything wrong." Their mother nodded, but then her eyes moved to something else on the screen. A detail your soulmate had overlooked. A small sign hidden beneath the old conversation. She leaned closer, touched the screen, and asked a question that caused your soulmate's breath to stop. "Who sent this after your last message?" Your soulmate took the phone back quickly. There, beneath the conversation they had read many times, was something neither of them expected to find. Something connected to you. Something that had been waiting unnoticed all this time. And when your soulmate opened it, the first words they saw changed the expression on their face completely.